Welcome back, my brothers and sisters of this world, whom Allah has created so beautifully. In this chapter, I want to clarify it's not about denying science or ignoring terminology. It's about recognizing that. Some experiences are too vast, too sacred, and too layered to be boxed into a single word. And honestly, I believe that it shouldn't really have a name. I'm pointing to the truth that naming something can shrink it, making it feel finished or fully understood, when in reality it's still a mystery and evolving. From an Islamic perspective, I believe my reasoning is strong. Allah did not choose to give it a name in Revelation, but He did give us the tools to navigate and overcome it, which already tells you how heavy it is to carry. The modern naming of it, limerence, doesn't capture the full spiritual dimension I'm talking about, and in fact, risks misleading people into thinking it's only psychological when it's also a test of the soul. With that being said, welcome to my episode, Limerence, the Spiritual Trial. Before I speak my truth, I want to honor the person who first brought the word limerence into the world, Dr. Dorothy Tennov. She was a psychologist, but more than that, she was a fellow human soul who, like all of us, was shaped by her own experiences and observations. In the late 1970s, she devoted years to studying the intensity of romantic longing, trying to name and understand a feeling that many had experienced but few had put into words. She chose the name limerence to describe what she saw as an involuntary, all-consuming state of desire, often accompanied by intrusive thoughts and a deep need for reciprocation. Her work came from a place of curiosity and care, and even if her lens was shaped by the tools of psychology, her effort to make sense of human emotion is something worth acknowledging. After all, the ability to feel so deeply is part of what makes us human. And her choice to examine that depth says something about her own willingness to engage with the complexity of love. But as much as I appreciate her contribution, my path took me somewhere her research did not go. I don't come to you with a degree or academic credentials. I come to you with the weight of lived experience, the kind that forces you to sit with Allah in frustration and say, Ya Allah, this is hard. Can you not do this to me? My understanding of limerence did not come from a lab or a survey. It came from nights of prayer, moments of breaking, and the quiet ways Allah taught me about the contracts we make with each other's souls. That is why I challenge the limits of the original definition, not to dismiss her work, but to add what can only be seen when you have walked through it with no filter, no medication, and no way out except through faith and endurance. This is my lived truth of what others call limerence, but what I have come to know as a spiritual trial. Limerence isn't some random brain glitch. It's not a mental misfire that science needs to medicate or label away. In my lived truth, it's a deep spiritual alignment, or sometimes an attempted alignment, between two souls. It is the soul reaching for another, weaving threads between hearts, and seeking a unity that exists beyond physical senses. This is why, when the connection is real, you feel it in your bones, in your breath, in the quiet of your chest, when their name enters your mind. The Quran reminds us in Surah Ar-Rum 30:21, and among his signs is that he created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and he placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reflect. This ayah isn't just about marriage, it's about the divine reality that love and emotional pull are signs from Allah, not mistakes in our biology. When two people connect emotionally and sexually, something unseen takes place. You create real energetic bonds, almost like threads, unseen to the eye but heavy on the soul. These threads are not metaphorical in my world. They are living connections, woven from speech, touch, shared thoughts, laughter, and even pain. They tangle themselves into your spiritual fabric, which is why, once a bond is formed, you can feel the other person's presence even in their absence. Modern science might describe this as the brain's neural pathways strengthening through repeated emotional stimuli. But the spiritual reality is older and deeper than any scientific explanation. They are clothing for you and you are clothing for them. Quran 2:187. Allah chose the metaphor of clothing because it covers, protects, warms, and touches the skin, just as our souls wrap around one another in intimacy. When you're spiritually tuned in, these threads become almost unbearable in their clarity. You can feel them. They tug at your peace when the other person's energy shifts. And if you can't fully read or harmonize with their energy, if their heart is turned elsewhere, or if their soul's path is misaligned with yours, it disturbs you to the core. You can't settle because the thread is vibrating with uncertainty. This is why what psychology calls obsession often feels so much more than intrusive thoughts. In my view, it's the mind's attempt to make sense of a spiritual connection and reconcile it with physical reality. The prophet once said, "Souls are like conscripted soldiers. Those that recognize one another will be friends, and those that do not will be in conflict." Sahih Muslim. That recognition, or the painful lack of it, is exactly what sends a soul into unrest. Healing from this state has nothing to do with suppressing feelings or numbing the mind. For me, healing was about release, thread by thread. It was a patient and deliberate untangling, guided not by my own strength, but by spiritual understanding, prayer, and divine trust. I learned that Allah sometimes removes people for your betterment, even when your heart is still wrapped tightly around them. That removal naturally causes distress because something sacred has been severed. But the Quran tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:216, "But perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you, and Allah knows, while you know not." These words became the anchor I clung to when every part of me wanted to run back to the person Allah was protecting me from. Prayer, in this process, became more than worship. It became alignment. I came to see prayer as Allah's perfected form of manifestation. It trained my soul to sit calmly through the storm of longing, to arrange my thoughts in the presence of my Lord, and to recenter reality away from the person or thing pulling me off course. Each time I bowed my head down in prayer and cried to my Creator was a loosening of the threads. Each whispered prayer, a redirection of energy back to the one who created me. And with every realignment, the suffocating weight of limerence lightened. Every deep interaction between human beings is, in my understanding, a contract. When we speak, when we share parts of ourselves, when we allow our time and attention to intertwine, we are entering verbal and spiritual agreements, whether we understand them or not. Allah sees and understands these contracts fully, even when we remain unaware. This is one of the many reasons He prefers marriage. It is the protective, divinely sanctioned way to bind souls. Marriage creates boundaries for intimacy, both physical and emotional, so that these bonds serve as mercy instead of harm. Without that protection, connecting to someone's soul can become a dangerous game. If someone abuses that connection, the wound isn't just emotional, it's mental and spiritual. You can lose your balance, spiral in thoughts, and feel parts of your own soul slipping away. So often, what the world calls limerence is not madness or obsession, It is simply the soul processing the weight and intensity of those contracts. The pain, the longing, the inability to just move on. These are not flaws in character. They are signs that your spirit is untangling itself from something that once wrapped around it tightly. And the healthy way to move through it isn't to label it, diagnose it, and pay to have it managed. It is to sit with the emotions, feel them in their fullness, and then, slowly and deliberately, realign yourself to reality and Allah's will. It is a bittersweet journey because it requires honoring what was once precious while also releasing it into God's hands. Reducing this to a diagnosis robs people of the human and divine experience of navigating attachment, loss, and realignment. The Prophet, peace be upon him, reminded us that whoever leaves something for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace it with something better. That replacement isn't always another person. Sometimes it's the return of your own peace, your own clarity, your own self-respect. In my framework, what Dorothy Tennov labeled as limerence is actually a divinely designed spiritual training ground. It is not something to medicate or escape from. It's an arena where the soul is tested, refined, and brought closer to its creator. If you are willing to endure the process. This understanding ties together faith, biology, emotional reality, and practical healing in a way that no single discipline can hold on its own. Faith explains that Allah designed human connection with purpose and boundaries. Biology confirms that our brains and bodies respond to emotional and sexual bonds in measurable ways. Emotional reality reminds us that pain is a natural response to broken attachments. And practical healing teaches us that sitting through the discomfort, untangling each thread with patience, and redirecting our energy toward Allah is the only path to lasting peace. This is not a disorder to fix. This is a sacred trial to experience, endure, and overcome. A trial that, if walked with patience and trust, will not only heal your heart, but train it to love in the way Allah intended.